We're going to talk about Star Wars today because I have a lot to say about Star Wars and no one to say it to. So I'm going to say it to you. Hello, my name is Andrew Givler, and this is GivReads. I think you can understand how we ended up with that name. I think you know how we got from there to here. I'm an author and booktuber, and today we're going to be talking about Star Wars. But before we do that, guys, listen, if you stumble on my corner of the internet, if you like what I have to say, if you want to see more of it, make sure to hit the like button, okay? So YouTube knows it's a good video. And also hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get this channel off the ground, so be in on the ground floor. It's like investing in crypto, except there's no crypto. Yeah, no, none whatsoever. But you'll make just as much money. I kid. This may come as a shock to you. I doubt it. But I was a huge Star Wars kid. I know everything about Star Wars. I could name, at one point, every single Super Star Destroyer ever manufactured by the Empire in the entire extended universe. That's a lot of Super Star Destroyers. Hold on, let's see if I can still do it. There's the Loooong, there is the Iron Fist, the Razor's Kiss, the Intimidator, the Executor. There's more. Now, there are also two that were never named, technically in canon, but we were aware they were in the same fleet, like the Black Sword fleet, I think it was. The Intimidator was the flagship. There were two more. Hold on, I'm curious. The Razor's Kiss was the last one. Was there really only 6? So technically I'm right, because Super Star Destroyer became sort of like a joke term that they applied to anything above an Imperial class Star Destroyer and yada, yada, yada. So of the ones that were actually considered Super Star Destroyers, not counting things like the Eclipse, there was like the Knight's Hammer, there was 1 or 2 other ones that floated out. They were like, oh, big, but not the same thing. But the ones that were like, we have built a Super Star Destroyer. I was correct. Still got them in my head. I even remember the 2 that most of the internet's forgotten about that were in the Black Sword fleet that were never found. So the point is, I'm a giant nerd, which is why I have some beef with the new era of Star Wars movies. And here's why. This is what I'm going to say to you. I don't like saying negative things about making content because it's hard to make content. There's a lot of things you have to juggle. It's not easy to be creative for everyone, right? So I try to give everybody a big benefit of doubt. Even if I don't like something, sometimes it's just because what I expect from a story isn't what everybody wants. Not every single story should be written how I want it to be written. That being said, there are some rules. There's some ground rules, and let's talk about those. I think the best way to compare how the Star Wars Extended Universe has been treated is to compare how the parent company, Disney, has handled the Marvel Extended Universe. Now, arguably, Marvel has an even bigger extended universe than Star Wars, right? After the Star Wars movies and, the prequels, there's a whole bunch of novels that were written that were sort of loosely maintained, and obviously there's some contradictions, there's some stuff that's better than others, but the same could be said of comics. There's all kinds of alternate timelines you didn't have to keep. But Marvel, I think, to every comic lover's delight, has shown a lot of love and passion for the source material that has come into it, right? Every time a new superhero gets introduced, maybe they tweak them, but it's still done with love. Like, as one of the biggest amazing Spider-Man nerds there is, I'm pretty happy with how they've done Spider-Man. I think even when they change it and do something new, they still pay homage to what it was. It's still clear that they love it. And I would say that Rogue One, which was written by Gary Whitta, who I actually got the chance to meet recently, which was super freaking cool. It was clear when they wrote Rogue One that they loved Star Wars, right? The entire premise of the Rogue One movie is, how the heck did they get those Star Destroyer plans? I've always wanted to know. Why was there a vent that one rocket could go in and blow up the Star Destroyer? And they answer that question. They almost like fill in a plot hole. They make the whole universe more, right? And of the new generation of Star Wars movies, that's the only movie that does that. I said it. So as somebody who was a huge reader and lover of the Star Wars Extended Universe, I want to tell you about some things that they've left that they shouldn't have left. Now, I have a guess as to why they decided to do what they've done and throw out the canon, okay? My guess is because I definitely will admit that the Star Wars canon kind of lost its way, right? Yeah, you may not be familiar, but after sort of the fall of the Emperor and the beginning of the rise of the Republic, there is a whole bunch of canon about the remnants of the Empire and the New Republic duking it out, fighting for control of the universe. Very cool stuff. And then they kind of jumped the shark a little bit. I am not defending the Yuuzhan Vong timeline at all, okay? Things that happen in the Yuuzhan Vong timeline is basically this race of aliens that doesn't even exist inside the Force, comes from outside the edge of the universe and invades. And they're like super organic oriented, like all their ships are like living rock. They're, instead of shields, they have like black hole creators that like create and catch lasers and stuff like that. The Jedi can't sense them. They are like these cruel, vicious creatures, and they sweep across the galaxy, and the Empire and the New Republic are sort of forced to deal with this new threat. That was where the extended universe lost me. I'll be honest. I read a bunch of them, but I was like, yeah. I read them as long as my heroes from the other generation were still there. As they all started to die to the Yuuzhan Yuuzhan Vong, I stopped caring. I 100%. So my guess is because of how long they waited to reboot the franchise, and they wanted to have Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, rest in peace, in the movie. They needed to have done it a while ago, right? Because those actors, while lovely and incredible, and I want them to reprise their role, they're now older. So they had to jump in timeline, and if they did jump in timeline, that's actually when the Yuuzhan Vong stuff would have started to occur, because that actually happens in Luke and Leia and Han's lifetime. It's like when their kids are coming of age is when that's supposed to happen. I get that they didn't want to do that. I didn't want them to do that. I'm fine with them throwing that out. But here's the stuff that they did throw out that's a crime. Did you know that it is a Han Solo trilogy pre-written already, which is Han Solo's origin story? So when they went and did the Solo movie, I imagine that they read all of those, took a bunch of inspiration from it, and used it, right? Right? No. It has all the scenes that like are referenced from the original New Hope, like how Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon did the Kessel Run in 11 parsecs. Why he had to do that? He was a smuggler being chased by like Imperial patrols and had to do this like super dangerous, stupid thing to avoid getting caught, right? How he gets into his debt, and when he did that, he had to dump a bunch of spice into a black hole, which is why he's in debt to Jabba, right? All these things that are filled in. He even has like a love interest who was part of the rebellion, and this is a spoiler, so I'm gonna just warn you before I say this. You can skip 10 seconds. She dies, and he is so heartbroken. That's why he's so against the rebellion, is because all he knows is the people he loved who went to the rebellion died, and he thinks it's futile. And so that makes his character in A New Hope and the rest of the Star Wars, as he joins the rebellion, even though he's like so afraid of it and so afraid of losing people and overcoming this heartbreak, so much better. The extended universe exists to lift up the movies, to lift up all the story around it, and that's what I love about it. Now, don't get me started, okay? Because also we need to talk about Rogue Squadron. Now, if you're like me, you grew up playing the Rogue Squadron games, and they were the best, okay? Who doesn't want to dogfight around in an X-Wing like Luke Skywalker or Wedge Antilles? You're like, who's Wedge Antilles? I think I remember them saying his name once in the movie. Wedge Antilles is the greatest rebellion pilot to ever live. I'm on a soapbox today. Nico, put me on a soapbox. Listen. Hear ye. We will now talk about Wedge Antilles. So I've talked about these briefly in one other video, but the Rogue Squadron series in the extended universe is incredible. It takes over basically a little bit after the fall of the Death Star, a couple years, right? Luke is off trying to rebuild the Jedi Order. He's left Rogue Squadron. Rogue Squadron is essentially formed out of the remnants of the pilots who made the runs on the Death Star. So the original Rogue Squadron is the Red Flight, right? That's who's considered the founders. Most of them died making the run on the Death Star. The few exceptions are Luke Skywalker, Wedge Antilles. I think that's it from the first one. There might be one or two others. Then Red Flight makes the run again on the second Death Star. The only people who survive are Wedge Antilles. And Tycho. Tycho was also there, but I think he was in an A-Wing. He was doing something else. Luke doesn't make the Death Star run. The only human to make 2 Death Star runs and survive is Wedge Antilles, greatest pilot in the rebellion. So they give Wedge Antilles Rogue Squadron, and they decide to rebuild it. And it features on a whole bunch of amazing characters like Corran Horn, who ends up becoming one of the first Jedi in the New Order, all these other really cool things. And they are responsible for the fall of Coruscant. It details the New Republic infiltrating and taking over Coruscant, and then the Emperor's lover, the head of Imperial Intelligence, Hussein Azard, flees on a Super Star Destroyer, the Lusayanka, and goes and takes over like the Bacta world and cuts medicine off from the New Republic. So they have to go fight her. All these crazy, super awesome things. Then Ray Squadron joins them. They do all these, like, they hunt down Warlord Zinj, who also has a Super Star Destroyer, the Iron Fist, and Razor's Kiss. Don't worry, you'll get to that. If you haven't read this stuff's incredible. This stuff needs to be, here's what I want. You know what I would like? I'm gonna tell you what I want. I'm gonna look you right in the eyes, and I'm gonna say, please make a high budget, serialized TV show, Game of Thrones style, maybe not quite that extreme, I know we're Disney, of the Rogue Squadron books. Please, where's my wallet? I'll give you this. Take it and make it. Please. The other thing that irks me about some of the new stuff is that they've thrown out all the technological definitions that exist in the expanded universe. And I know that this is like kind of minor and super nitpicky, but let me give you an example. In The Force Awakens, Poe steals a TIE fighter and makes a jump to hyperspace. TIE fighters do not have hyperdrives, right? So like a whole point of like the symbolism, hello, what am I in the Boondock Saints? The whole point of the symbology is the Empire doesn't really care, right? They're massive. Their ships are massive. They have hundreds of faceless stormtroopers. They don't care about the individual. They are the machine that grinds us down. And this is indicated in the very first shot of A New Hope, right? The Corellian frigate is like down and low, and then above it is like the long arm of the Empire, the Imperial Star Destroyer sliding above them, right? Boring. No, I'm not kidding. It's boring at all. That's kind of continued in how their mindset about technology is. So an X-Wing is much more expensive than a TIE fighter because the Republic doesn't have thousands and thousands of pilots. They have a few pilots that they can invest a little bit into. So an X-Wing has shields, it has torpedoes, it has a hyperdrive. A TIE fighter, not so much. That's why Rogue Squadron's able to take on like tons of TIE fighters, is they have like, they're a little bit slower, but they're like tougher machines. Like an X-Wing is a more expensive, powerful machine because the Empire doesn't care. The Super Star Destroyer carries 12 squadrons of 12 fighters each, 144. It can just vomit out things. I think Imperial Star Destroyer carried 6 squadrons, if I recall correctly. So when you lose that, you're losing the magic of like explaining how the Empire feels. Like it's the details, right? It's the world building. The world building goes away, which loses the ideologies and things like that. And as somebody who's super steeped in the lore, sure, maybe it's only for me, right? He could have stolen a Lambda class shuttle and escaped because those have hyperdrives. Sure, fine. But that would have mattered a little bit, right? Like, it's just world building layers. And with the throwing out of the extended universe, we've lost some of that. And that's what makes me sad. Now, I am very excited that Thrawn is getting brought back in. And my hope is that Thrawn is going to be so well done and so well received that they'll be open to doing like Rogue Squadron, because I know they've thought about it. I know for a fact that they've talked about it, right? They talked about doing a Rogue Squadron movie. Just give us Top Gun in a TV show about Rogue Squadron. I'll write it for free. Well, not that last part, but I'll write it. Tell me who to talk to. I will pitch it until I'm blue in the face. Bring me in, coach. I'm ready. Okay, this has been a rant about Star Wars. So I want to give you guys a few things to read, obviously, if you haven't read a lot of the Star Wars Extended Universe. Top of my list is the Rogue Squadron series by Michael Stackpole, and then the second half's by Aaron Alston, because it alternates between 2 squadrons. It makes sense. Just read them. They're excellent. Next up for Extended Universe of the like post-Fall of the Empire era is the Han Solo trilogy. The first one's called The Paradise Snare. I'll link all these in the description below. The third one I want to recommend is I, Jedi, which is also by Michael Stackpole, but it's about Corran Horn, who is a member of Rogue Squadron, but he is not in Rogue Squadron at this point. It's really, really good. And then also read the Thrawn trilogy because it's incredible. Yep, all of those are great. Those are your assigned readings. Go check them out. They'll be linked in the description below. If you use my links, I get a little kickback, which helps me keep doing what I'm doing, pay for more books, that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate it. In the meantime, I want to hear your guys' theories. Do you have parts of the Extended Universe you love? Do you think I'm completely wrong? I want to know. Give me some feedback down in the comments below. Hit the like button, etc. I'll see you guys in the next one.